Imagine standing on a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, an island you could drive across in a single day. Now imagine that beneath its cities lies a prehistoric, underground world filled with thousands of human remains. Imagine mysterious stone tracks carved into solid rock, tracks that suddenly disappear beneath the sea. Imagine massive temples built thousands of years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. And then imagine an ancient civilization capable of building all of this suddenly disappearing. No clear evidence of war, no obvious evidence of a devastating epidemic, no final explanation. This is Malta. And tonight on Mysterious Subjects, we are going beneath the surface of one of the most mysterious islands on Earth. Because the deeper we go, the stranger the story becomes. And make sure you stay until the end, because the final mystery may be the biggest of them all. What happened to the people who built Malta's incredible ancient temples? And where did they go? Welcome to Mysterious Subjects. Malta is known around the world for its crystal clear water, ancient fortifications, dramatic coastlines, and the legendary history of the Knights of St. John. But long before the Knights, long before Valletta, long before recorded history, another civilization lived here. A civilization that left behind underground chambers, enormous stone temples, strange networks carved into limestone, and structures that may have been deliberately aligned with the movements of the sun here. Some of these places are more than 5,000 years old. That means parts of Malta's prehistoric story reach further back than the pyramids of Egypt. But here is where things become truly unsettling. The more archaeologists discovered, the more questions appeared. Our first mystery begins underground. In 1902, workers in the Maltese town of Paula were digging a cistern for a new home. It should have been an ordinary construction project. Instead, the ground suddenly gave way. Beneath their feet was darkness, a hidden opening. And when they descended, they discovered something extraordinary. A vast underground complex carved directly into the rock. Today, it is known as the Ħal Saflieni Hypogeum. And it is unlike almost anything else in the ancient world. The Hypogeum is a multi-level underground complex descending deep below the surface. Its chambers, corridors, and passages were carved from solid limestone thousands of years ago. There were no modern machines, no steel drills, no electric lighting. And yet, whoever built it managed to create an elaborate underground world of rooms, passageways, and carefully shaped spaces. Some ceilings appear to imitate the architecture of buildings above ground, except there are no separate blocks. The ceilings were carved directly from one enormous mass of stone. And then came one of the most disturbing discoveries: human remains. Thousands of them. Over generations, the hypogeum appears to have been used as a burial site. But not every chamber seems to have had the same purpose. Some spaces suggest ritual activity. Others appear to have been designed with something else in mind. And among the human remains, researchers found something unusual. A number of skulls appeared to have elongated shapes. For years, similar skulls were reportedly displayed at Malta's National Museum of Archaeology. Visitors could see them, examine them. Then, decades ago, they disappeared from public display. Why? The explanation is not as simple as some of the more sensational stories online would have you believe. There are several possible explanations for unusual skull shapes. Artificial cranial deformation was practiced by ancient cultures in different parts of the world. Natural variation can also produce elongated skulls. But the question remains, why has this subject continued to generate so much speculation? And why has a comprehensive modern examination of these particular remains become such a point of fascination? Yet as strange as the skulls may be, they are not the most unusual thing about the hypogeum. Because deep inside the complex is a chamber that appears to do something extraordinary with sound. It is often referred to as the oracle room. At first glance, it may not seem remarkable. Just another chamber cut into stone, but speak inside it at the right pitch, and something happens. The sound changes. It begins to resonate. And according to acoustic investigations, certain frequencies can produce a powerful effect throughout the chamber. Imagine it. You are standing underground. The walls around you were carved thousands of years ago. You speak, and your own voice seems to come alive inside the stone. Not just something you hear, but something you feel. The sound appears to move through the chamber and through your body. This raises an extraordinary question. Was this simply an accidental result of the chamber's shape? Or did its prehistoric builders understand something about acoustics? Could they have discovered through experimentation that certain shapes amplified certain frequencies? And if so, was the chamber intentionally designed to create this effect? Some researchers have suggested that sound may have played a role in ancient rituals, a powerful voice echoing through darkness, low frequencies vibrating through the body, participants surrounded by stone and silence. It is not difficult to imagine how such an environment could create an intense psychological experience. But we may never know exactly what happened in these underground rooms thousands of years ago. And this is only the beginning. Because our next mystery isn't hidden beneath Malta. It is carved directly across the landscape in broad daylight for everyone to see. Across parts of Malta, particularly near Misrahar il-Kabir, there is an ancient network of strange grooves cut into limestone. They are known as the Malta Cart Ruts. And from above, they look almost impossible. Parallel lines run across the landscape. They intersect. They divide. They converge. They spread out again. In some places, the pattern resembles a transportation network. In others, it looks almost like an enormous map carved into the earth. The grooves are deep. In some places, extremely deep. So how were they made? The most widely discussed explanation is that repeated movement of heavily loaded carts or sledges gradually wore grooves into softer limestone. Over time, the exposed rock hardened. This is a reasonable explanation for at least some of the tracks. But then come the difficult questions. Not all of the routes appear to lead where we would expect. Some pass near ancient quarries, others do not. Some cross landscapes where their purpose is difficult to determine. And then there is the most mysterious detail of all. In some locations, the tracks appear to continue toward the coast and disappear beneath the sea. Think about that for a moment. If these tracks were created when the land now covered by water was still exposed, then sea levels must have been lower. Which raises another question. How old are some of these mysterious routes? The limestone itself cannot simply tell us when a particular groove was carved. Underwater sections have not provided a final answer either, and so the mystery remains. Were these ancient transport routes? Were they connected to the movement of stone? Did they form part of a larger prehistoric system across the islands? Or are we still looking at them without fully understanding what we are seeing? But the next mystery takes us to the neighboring island of Gozo. And this one is harder to ignore because there, ancient builders moved stones so massive that even today, the scale of the construction is astonishing. The site is called Gigantihia. Its name is associated with giants. And when you see the size of the stones, you understand why. The temples of Jankatia were built thousands of years ago. They predate the pyramids of Giza. They belong to one of the most remarkable prehistoric architectural traditions in Europe. Some of the stones used in their construction weigh tens of tons. Imagine trying to move one of them without a crane, without engines, without modern machinery, without steel cables. How was it done? The most likely answer involves human ingenuity. Large groups of people, ropes, wooden rollers, levers, careful planning. Experimental archaeology has shown that enormous stones can, in principle, be moved using relatively simple technology when enough people and coordination are involved. But moving the stones is only part of the story. The builders also had to position them, arrange them, construct complex spaces, and create structures capable of surviving for thousands of years. This required organization, knowledge, planning, and generations of experience. So here is the question. What kind of society existed on Malta more than 5,000 years ago? How was labor organized? Who designed these structures? How did knowledge pass from one generation to another? And perhaps most importantly, what happened to the people who created them? Before we reach that final mystery, we need to return underground. Back to the Hypogeum, back to the chamber where sound may have been more important than anyone expected. Because if the acoustic properties of the oracle room were intentional, it could change the way we think about ancient architecture. The builders may not have needed modern scientific terminology to understand sound. They did not need to know the equations of acoustic physics. All they needed was observation, experimentation, generation after generation, discovering what happened when a chamber was shaped in a particular way. Perhaps they learned that certain voices produced stronger resonance. Perhaps they discovered that particular frequencies behaved differently inside particular spaces. Perhaps this knowledge became part of ritual tradition. Or perhaps it was all a coincidence. That is the mystery. But the possibility is fascinating. Because the Hypogeum was not created by people who had access to modern laboratories. It was created by prehistoric communities. And yet, its architecture still produces effects that researchers continue to investigate. Now consider the bigger picture. Underground chambers, complex acoustics, massive temples, astronomical alignments, an extensive prehistoric culture. And then, silence. Around 2500 BC, the great temple-building culture of prehistoric Malta came to an end. Not necessarily overnight, but dramatically enough to leave archaeologists asking difficult questions. The people who had built these extraordinary monuments were gone. A different population eventually appeared. Material culture changed. Pottery changed. Burial traditions changed. And the ancient temple-building era was over. But why? There is no simple answer. There is no single piece of evidence pointing to one final catastrophe. No obvious record of a massive war that destroyed the entire civilization. No universally accepted evidence of one devastating epidemic. No clear sign of a single disaster that explains everything. So what happened? One possibility involves environmental pressure. Malta is small, its natural resources are limited. Intensive farming could have exhausted the soil. Climate changes could have made life more difficult. A growing population may have placed increasing pressure on the environment. Over time, a society dependent on limited resources may have struggled to survive. This is one possible explanation, but it does not answer every question. Could the population have gradually declined? Could people have left the islands? Could environmental stress have weakened the society until its religious and social systems collapsed? Or was it something more complex? Something we still cannot see in the archaeological record? This is where Malta's greatest mystery begins. Because an ancient civilization capable of extraordinary construction does not simply become uninteresting because we do not understand its final chapter. The opposite is true. The more we learn about prehistoric Malta, the more mysterious that chapter becomes. These people built monumental temples. They organized massive construction projects. They understood landscapes. They observed the sky. At sites such as Menidra, the architecture is associated with the movements of the sun and seasonal cycles. Light enters the temple in carefully observed ways at specific times of the year. For an agricultural society, the sun was not simply something in the sky. It governed seasons, planting, harvesting, survival. Years of observation could have allowed ancient communities to understand these cycles with remarkable precision. And then the civilization that created these structures disappeared from history. The temples remained, the stones remained, the underground chambers remained, the strange tracks remained. But the people themselves were gone. No written records tell us exactly what happened. No ancient document gives us their final destination. No surviving voice explains why the great age of Malta's temple builders ended. And perhaps that is the most haunting part of all. Imagine being the last generation. The temples your ancestors built still stand. The rituals that defined your society for centuries are beginning to change. Resources may be becoming harder to find. The world around you is changing. And eventually, your civilization is no longer there. Thousands of years later, strangers walk among your monuments and ask, who were they? How did they build this? What did they believe? And most importantly, where did they go? Malta still holds those answers. Somewhere in its soil, somewhere beneath its waters, somewhere inside the chambers carved into its rock. Perhaps future excavations will reveal more. Perhaps new technology will unlock evidence we cannot yet see. Or perhaps some mysteries will remain mysteries. The skulls, the underground hypogeum, the strange resonance of the oracle room, the cart ruts crossing the limestone and disappearing toward the sea, the enormous stones of Gigantici, the astronomical knowledge encoded in ancient temples. And finally, an entire prehistoric civilization whose ultimate fate remains uncertain. 5 mysteries. One tiny archipelago and thousands of years of unanswered questions. So what do you think? Which mystery of Malta is the most fascinating? The underground world of the Ħal Saflieni Hypogeum? The strange elongated skulls? The ancient cart ruts? The massive megalithic temples? Or the disappearance of Malta's prehistoric temple builders? Leave your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring ancient civilizations, archaeological mysteries, lost cultures, unexplained discoveries, and the secrets hidden beneath the surface of history, subscribe to Mysterious Subjects. Because there are places around the world where history gives us answers. And then there are places where the answers only create even bigger questions. And Malta may be one of the most mysterious of them all.